Hello, and welcome to another episode of Cut to It, the nursing podcast for all things OR, but we're happy to include other nursing specialties. I am Dr. Rosemary Babeaux. I am a clinical education aficionado. I've been a consultant across the United States. We've done some little bit of worldwide work as well with clinical education, bringing the best evidence practice to you.
We appreciate that about you, Rosemary. I'm Mary Anne Sanford, and I'm an educator for clinical areas and medical device, also in medical affairs. And we're so happy to have you here today. Thanks for joining.
Yes, and we have a very fun topic to talk about today, code retire. What happens when our experienced nurses leave the OR? Well, we'll tell you what happens in probably about 15 minutes to get you wrapped up. What did you find in the literature, Mary Ann?
Well, I found out that people love retirement and never look back. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I don't know anybody who's like, oh, I have to retire, really? So what was interesting though is there weren't any relevant journal articles for healthcare. You would have thought with the brain drain, as they call it, for the OR in particular, that there would have been some research on it. And as you always say, hey, someone out there, maybe this is a research project for you to really talk with retirees and people that are staying behind about what that looks like. So yeah, nothing in nursing in particular. There is a small publication. I'll talk about that in a second. But what the OR departments, and not just the OR, other places in the hospital are experiencing is the exodus of nurses that have 20 to 40 years of experience. I mean, I'm sure you did too, Rosemary. I knew people that were there. I can't even tell you how long, probably 40 years, maybe
Mhm.
even more, spent their entire lives essentially in the operating room. That knowledge that they have is not in policy manuals. It's just not in any place. It's not written down. And it can be lost with retirement. The clinical judgment versus checklist thing, there's just things that you can't put down in writing. It just takes experience to be able to have that discussion and coach different other members of the OR through situations.
It's like raising a teenager. Until you've done it, I don't want to
Right.
hear it.
Yeah, exactly. And you teach, right? You have to sometimes repeat teaching.
Read every book that's out there.
Yep, and it works in the OR too. We know we have to repeat things all the time for some people. One thing that also happens when there's retirement, new nurses really struggle to learn things because the pool of knowledge may be shorter depending on how many people were there that long and are in fact retiring. And big concern is how to transfer that knowledge when it's about to disappear. That's one of the biggest problems we see when it comes to experienced OR nurses retiring.
And that brings up a very good, I think, segue into what can you do when they retire. And I think a lot of it has to do with leadership. What are they doing in terms of forecasting? What are they doing for, um, continuing the legacy of, say, magnet status? How are we incorporating the knowledge and the experience that our nurses have? Can we put them in, when you say retire, why are you retiring? Have a discussion with somebody. Maybe they have been there 40 years, but and as you said, that's all they've ever done is the OR. Sure, they've trained, they've precepted, and they may have even mentored somebody. But are we doing succession planning, and what does that look like? And can we still retain these experienced nurses, either on a PRN status, or can we use them in a different way, like a consultant? Can you come in as a consultant every now and again with this group? Maybe we can't afford an entire nurse residency program for the OR at this time, but we have this pool of nurses who will help perform that, and they don't want to be in the OR, for a 40-hour plus week. So we can transfer the knowledge that way. And I think the other thing that, and you may mention this, if not, I'm going to bring it up now. We are also losing some of that if we don't have the new nurses because they come in fresh, and they are so used to, AI is coming whether you want it to or not. We've been using it for a while. A lot of experienced nurses may not even understand how much that's been incorporated into things, but the new generations that are coming, and it doesn't have to be, a 21-year-old nurse when she first graduates. We can have a 30 something nurse that's just graduated, or even a 40 something nurse that's just graduated. But guess what? They have experienced this, using cell phones, doing all these things, with smartphones for a much longer period of time. And we're going to need that experience and ease of which they learn these new processes to help round it out. So I think we can both benefit from each other. I want nurses to retire. Some of them we really want to retire, but we also, and even if they're grouchy nurses, you know what? Maybe they just need a change. Maybe they don't need to exit the facility completely, but maybe we can find something that makes them feel, you know, well cared for, valued. And that is part of, and we'll do a segment on this, an episode on this as well, for burnout. Maybe they want to retire because they're just burnt out. A lot of good projects that you can do to find out. Mary Anne mentioned one in the beginning, and that's another one. What can we do to keep these nurses around, but still give them the freedom to enjoy life, the best life ever, the one they've worked hard for.
Right, right, right. And by the way, Rosemary mentioned AI. We have done a podcast on AI, so we
Oh,
hope you look at that and watch that as well.
mhm.
AI specifically for the operating and what that looks like. So,
Yes, paging doctor, a
so
logarithm. Look it up. It's a good one.
that
Fresh
was it.
knowledge too. Lots of new things coming, and I think that sometimes too, Marianne. If you've worked in the OR a long time, maybe you're just tired, and I think there's ways to deal with that as well. And maybe you don't want to learn anything new. But that keeps your brain going, though, honestly, when you have to learn new things, when you do change. And I think there's value to that. We talk about holistic nursing and forming new synapses. That's what keeps your brain going. And also new friendships. You may think they're young. What do they know? They're, blah, blah, blah. No, they know a lot. They can bring so many things and such joy and funny and actually a lot of good music to the OR too.
Yeah, what you were talking about, the desire to help or maybe be a consultant or something was talked about in this publication. It was Burmeister. It was 2016, so
Mhm.
not exactly recent, but 10 years ago. One of the things I found interesting about that article was I couldn't believe this. The relative share of individuals older than 59 is expected to increase to 21% in 2050. That's an enormous number of people leaving. When you think about losing 21% of your knowledge every time somebody retires, that's a lot.
Mhm.
So I really thought that that was interesting. I also liked when they said that intergenerational knowledge transfer is a matter of survival to prevent corporate amnesia.
Yep.
So this article wasn't about the operative specifically; it was about all employment. But yeah, I like that term, corporate amnesia, because you
Oh,
don't know.
don't we know that? Oh my gosh. We did that. We tried that. Yes. Yes, we did.
We did. I mean, when things leave, management may not know what left, right? Because if there's not a formal process, and that's one of the things they were talking about, if there's not a formal process, there's an assumption that this knowledge has been transferred when indeed it may not have been.
Mhm.
One thing that was interesting is they talked about things that influence the transfer of knowledge, like generational affiliation, experience, career status, that kind of thing. It was interesting because in this paper anyway, they searched for and were unable to find anything regarding like true um, uh, differences, theoretically or empirically, in the differences in the different, the differences in the different
It was really different.
differences between the different age groups, Gen Z, Boomer, Millennial, whatever. And that's unsubstantiated. In this particular article, they were unable to substantiate that there is, in fact, a difference in knowledge, learning, or transfer, because it also transfers up, right? It's not just
Yep.
down. So that they said it doesn't really matter. And they weren't able to find anything that definitively said, oh, yes, this generation is very good at transfer and this one's very good at receiving. That's not really what happened. Um, it really boils down to, for knowledge transfer, what, when, how, why, and whom. They're just it's very broad when we talk about knowledge transfer. One of the things that's a big factor is how motivated was the retiree to actually help. Not everyone's motivated to leave behind knowledge.
Mhm.
Some people are very generous with their information and others not so much. The organization just assumes that they're going to do it, and that may not be the case. Most of the time, there's no formal process for people to make a transfer. I mean, if they're leaving, all of a sudden there's a crush, say 2 weeks notice, and they're going to be leaving. How much can you really transfer in 2 weeks, right? So a formalized process would definitely be helpful.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't, the transfer is likely not to occur to any good benefit. Uh, it also has to do with the career of the person. Were they mid-career and they're moving on to something else? Maybe they're semi-retired and they're going to a different department like we were talking about. It can also apply, by the way, to workers that leave. It's not just retirees, because if they take that knowledge with them, more often they're older, have had more experience. If they take that information when they have less tenure, it's still a loss for sure.
Agree. Another thing that I think we should mention is the physicality of working in the operating room. And as we age, there is a difference in what your body can handle. And I've brought up, and with the robotics, and we are going to do a podcast on this, how they are, I think, really life changing for those working in the operating room, and hopefully we'll have a bit more of longevity. I have a good friend who was, where she still is, an RFNA, and she just, the whole body of work, lifting these legs, and I mean it's a lot. And she went over to oncology to work for a while, and it was a whole different thing. So luckily, the nursing profession retained her. But we have to admit, working in the OR is not easy, and especially in orthopedics and some of the other ones that you're standing, and cardiovascular, standing for an intense amount of time. So I do think the more the robots can do successfully, not only is to benefit to the patient, but it can really, I think, reshape the operating room, and perhaps we'll get some more longevity because people aren't breaking their backs doing some of these things. We'll have a robot positioning and turning and doing a lot of these things that are really hard on the human body. And as you know, I mean, how many times have you heard somebody tore their meniscus just because they turned the wrong way? So it's very easy to sustain an injury, even though you're not necessarily even doing hard lifting. But the OR is a fast-paced environment for the most part. So you do have to have good physicality.
You're giving me flashbacks to the longest case I ever did, which was a aneurysm clipping, and you can't leave when, and they don't. I don't know if they really do these so much anymore. They put the coils in to take care of the aneurysm, but at the time we were using clips. It was 8 hours of standing. You couldn't leave. You had to stay there and be ready in case there was a disaster. Right, the clip wasn't put on properly. I will tell you, and you may agree, that was sort of a defining moment for me, thinking, I don't know if I can physically handle this if there's another one and then another one. So I'm not sure that this is the path forward for me.
Mhm.
That was one of the reasons I ended up leaving and doing other things in surgery and in corporate. So it's a very good point you're making, that the physicality is a very, very real thing that people are probably really experiencing, but may have no choices, or just like what they do, so they put up with it.
Well, we hope to hear from you on what you're doing in your facility for succession planning, reallocating your talent to other areas. Um, Whether they want a break, but you can definitely find ways to keep um, people that are involved and willing to. Not everybody wants to. There's a lot to life. But anyway, we appreciate you listening. We'd like to hear from you. Like, subscribe, comment, email, cut to it, podcast@gmail.com. And we have some really good topics coming up. So we hope to see you again. Mary Anne?
Time for the final count. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you. Take care.
Bye.